turning for about 15 years. I probably turned more the last 6 years that I did previous 15 years because I retired, so I have plenty of time to turn now. And I was lucky I set up a nice shop in the basement, so I don't have to go anyplace. My commute to work now is 13 steps, so it works pretty good. It has some bad parts on it because I don't sleep very much, so sometimes I get an idea and I get up in the middle of the night and I wind up in a shop doing some work, primarily because, just up. Might as well get on. So if it wasn't there, it probably would be a little bit less, convenient. But my turning is pretty much general. I do a little bit of everything. I love to do bowls. I like to do vessels, and I have stayed away from segmenting because I knew that if I started, I would be just sucked in because that's my kind of background.
He's our segmenter.
I do a lot of precision work and things like that, and so I knew that if I started, I would be sunk, and I did. When I started, I've done a lot of segmenting now for the last year, and I enjoy it. But I still enjoy though the free form, just putting a piece of wood in a lathe and just let it rip, and see what happens. What I thought we'll do tonight, rather than just trying to turn something or show you how I do one specific thing, which probably you guys can probably show me how to use a tool, properly, because I'm not really that expert as far as tool operations. Now, what I do have though is, and I found this from doing some of these demos, that I have a crazy mind, so I go out in left field and I come up with all kinds of ideas. Matter of fact, my problem is choosing the ideas because I got too many. I stay up at night and I want to do this and I want to do that. And when I take a class someplace, then I want to just push it a little bit more. I want to do a little bit extra. So I thought that tonight what we should do is kind of visit about the process that I use, and maybe we can share ideas on how to get some concept in your mind and move it from there into something that you can actually make. I have a very simple way of doing things. Unfortunately, one of my bad habits is that I sketch everything and I measure everything. So I start out with a drawing of what I'm going to do. And that's not necessarily what everybody else does, but that's the way I do it. So you will find that as we talk, I'll show you some of the things. As a matter of fact, I have a drawer where I put all my sketches, whether I finish them or not, everything goes back there. So I'll show you that there is all kinds of stuff in there. It has notes everywhere, but I'm not one of those guys that can jump out of a plane without a parachute. And I know many turners just love that. I mean, they just get in there, piece of wood, and let the wood tell you what to do, which is fantastic. I mean, I think I admire that capacity to taking and just using the wood and doing the best way, but I just can't do that. So anyway, so what I do is I use the pirate rule. That would be the arg, arg, arg. And what it is I think I activate my right side of the brain, which I understand is the one that is the creative part. And I try to keep the left side of the brain, my engineering part, away. Just don't bother me. Just let me come up with an idea. So that I activate that part. So that will be the A. Then once I have all these concepts, these ideas or words or something that I want to do, then I have to get to the realizing that this concept is here now. What do I do? I have to recognize it. I have to recognize that there's something good that I've come up with. And then the next thing, then I got to relate to it. I got to say, okay, now I got this. Now what am I doing with it? So now I'm going to start asking some help from my left side of the brain. How do we put this on a chuck? What kind of wood are we going to use? What kind of color? But what I'm trying to point out to you is that I found that a lot of times some of the ideas that you get never go anyplace because the left side of the brain is going to tell you, oh, you can't do that. There's not enough wood, or you don't have enough expertise on a thing, you don't have the right tool. So don't listen to that. Just get the concept firm in your mind, get excited about it. The rest will come. I mean, you'll solve the problems. So that's one of the rules that I use. So what happens is that I get involved in all kinds of crazy things, and not all of them are successful. Some of them I just have to make a model and it doesn't work, and then I put it away, and then I go back 6 months later and I say, I'm going to work on that now. I go back there, and maybe I've learned a few things in the meantime, so I look at it in a different way now. Now I have a little bit more experience, I have a few things to contribute to. So, what I'm talking about is there's no one way to do it. You know, the idea of taking a piece of wood and looking at it and saying, man, this will make a beautiful bowl. There's nothing wrong with that. Put it on a lathe. Just get going. The thing is, you got to move from the concept into getting the action going. And that is, you know, because that's the easy part, is to get all your ducks in a row and get as much of the solution as you possibly can, and then get going. Now, we can talk about form, we can talk about all that, and I think a lot of the turners that I listen to, I think are a little bit out in the left field, you know. They just give you all these dimensions and things, and I still think that you have to do something that you like. It's got to excite you. If it doesn't excite you, if you don't get excited about this piece that you're doing, I think it's just work then. You know, I mean, you're putting in the hours. Because I think you'll find that as you keep going, I don't know how many of you are beginners, but as you get going, you'll get frustrated because, you know, your learning curve doesn't keep up with what you want to do, and you just say, you move on, and you just don't keep doing either the same thing or just never try something new. So I think the idea of it is get excited about one particular form, shape. You can use a word, you can use whatever starts your right brain thinking. Once you get that going, nail it down, bring it on a table. If you're a sketcher guy, sketch it. If you're not, guess it. Just get going, but get started in it. Get started and get it going. And you'll fail, but I don't think you should throw that piece away. You should put it away, because you'll look at it 6 months from now and you'll know what to do about it. Because that original idea was a good one to begin with. You just didn't have the right elements to get going with it. So go back on it and do something else with it. Add something or take something off or whatever it is. So I don't know for sure how many of you want to have a drawing set up for the shape that you're doing. How many of you do that? Just show me. You do a drawing. You guys do bowls and things like that. All right. You take a bowl and you start on it. You have enough experience now that you know by looking at a piece of wood, you get on it. I still put it on a piece of paper. And I'll tell you why now, because that's what I want to talk about a little bit. Just a yeah. If I have a piece of wood now, I have a blank, I have it in here. Now, I normally don't take it and go on. I'll just take a piece of paper and I'll work the shape out that I think is going to fit, and that I'm not going to wait to open up to see whether there is something in there that is going to change my mind. I just want that shape, and that's what I have in mind, and I visualize that. Then there's a few tricks that you can do. You can take it, you don't have to have a drawing board, you don't have to be that precise, and you don't have to be an expert, sketcher. If you can see it, you can draw it. That's the way I look at it. You take it and you do half of it. Do one shape that is pleasant, and you only have half of it. then in order to make the other half, you just mark the back of this pretty heavy. You bring it over, and it gives you the line for the other one. So you copy that line over, and you have the full shape. And now you can decide whether you got the right thing or not. Because sometimes if you see half of it, there's no relation to it. So you have to have the counterpart on it. So you know that that thing fits, it's the right combination, it's the shape you want, and then you start. That's the way I work. Now, maybe if you don't do that, you want to try it. Because I think what it does, it gives you a little bit more discipline of bringing some of those concepts around. Because this pretty much is fairly simple. But now you start doing something a little bit more complicated. Something that requires a few little more things on it. And you'll find that if you get used to the idea of making a sketch, especially if you're doing a vase, if you're doing something that has, a little more details to it, where are you going to put the handles, if you're going to put handles on it? Where are you going to put accent ring? Where, it's nice to be able to have a roadmap for you to go on. And you don't have to, but I think if I can talk you into trying it, you'll find that this is what I meant by, I just grabbed a few things in here that I just had there, just to show you. This was the beginning. This was one concept. I wanted to do something during COVID that had a meaningful word to it. And I wanted to talk about justice. And I said, all right, what do I do that represents justice? And of course, the scale is what everybody understands. So, all right, so I had plan A and plan B. Plan A is a standard, pretty much recognizable scale. Plan B, I pushed it a little bit. Now I want to do something a little crazy. All right, so I want to show you what it came out, what it looks like, so that you know how I got from point A to point B. Okay. Okay. This is the A concept. Okay. All right. So I want to. Of course, it's going to be wood because I'm going to make it of wood. But now, I mean, those things were not wood. So you gotta create that image, and so you gotta make it look like metal or bronze or something like that. So all right. So here comes texturing a little bit and adding, a couple of features. Then this is fine. This is understandable. I mean, anybody knows that represents justice. But now you want to push that concept. You want to come out with something a little different. Okay. Now, that's a mobile. It moves. It's still a scale. It still represents justice. But it's a totally different, coming in from left field, coming in, it's just doing something different. So what I'm saying, when you come up with a concept or an idea, you start it from the beginning and you just work it, you milk it all the way down. You come up and do as many possible approaches to it as you possibly can. Now, solving the problem is then your next job. All right, so here it's a matter of coming up with texture. Here is a matter of coming up with bending some wood. You got to use steam, and you got to, So of course, most of us don't have steam on it, so we gotta build something to, so all of that is the process. And I think that turning or doing pieces like this is a journey, really. It's kind of starting out from the beginning and going all the way through. And I did justice, I did peace, and I did liberty. The same thing, the same concept, just different words. I used a word to kind of come up with a motivation for it. Now, here I went exactly to scale. I found out the dimensions of the Liberty Bell, and I built one to scale. Segmented. And this was another word again. And I had the torch with a hand holding the torch as a second thing. Plan A and Plan B. Now, these I didn't do a lot. This one is the only one I built. These have become so successful that I had to make a model, because this is too big for somebody to keep on their desk. So I found out very quickly that I had to make a smaller one. And I think I'm up to about 15 of them now. So, because I got a lot of friends that are lawyers. So that's how, it goes. Now this one the same way. I've sold a couple of that size, but I had to come up with one about this size. And it goes real well. Now, the hope one is what surprised the hell out of me. We again, remember COVID, now everybody's just shut in and everybody's just, so when I did the COVID, what I came up with is I came up with this concept. Just hand up in the air. It's kind of a supplication of some kind. So this is my interpretation of hope. I made it in this size first. Everybody fell in love with it right away. So from there, I just pushed it again. I started with that concept, which is segmented. Here it's so that gives you an idea what can be done. Same concept, but now just push it. I mean, you gotta really, come up with and put your interpretation, put your feeling in it. That probably there's one size about this side. That's the most popular. That went out real well, and people respond when you're able to translate what you have in your mind into a concept like this. People respond. Now, you'll find, for instance, that if you have it too big, or if you have some colors that are not quite thing on it, but you'll make some minor adjustments, and then when you really hit it. And by the same token, you should have seen the 3 or 4 different models that I made that were not quite right. I mean, it just it wasn't right until you get to the right balance, to the right thing. So, but all this, what I'm telling you is that I usually start out with a simple sketch like this first, and then it goes into an actual drawing, dimension-wise, and everything else. And through calculation, when you're doing segmenting, I'm sure he knows about it. When you do a segmenting, you do half of the vessel, and you figure out all the dimensions on it. So now that's my thing. I enjoy that kind of thing, and I don't expect people to really like that. But on the same token, you can see I'm really playing around with it. I'm just pushing every possible way, higher, lower, open, close. But I have it here before I start doing the work. If I don't like it, I just put it away and then just go and do it. Then when it gets just about right, you know, you just tell. You just tell when you hit it just right. And here this is what my working sketches are. So you can see all that is part of what this is. It takes a while to get there, but I think it's easier to do it on paper than to do the model, because you get a lot of hours involved in that. Especially this right here, it's got segmenting in there, so each ring is stacked one on top of the other.
Lots of pieces in
So
there.
you know, you want to be someplace ready to go before you get into there. And you can tell when you put the sketch together on it, pretty close. You know, you enlarge a little bit, you lower a little bit, you close it a little bit, and it doesn't take much to just get right on the money. And you can do it on paper first, and it saves you a lot of problems. So, the thing that I'm starting to do now a little bit more of is adding a little color. I really have had a tough time starting to go to this metallic paint and things like that. But in cases like this, you have to come up with something. But I'm starting to play around with a little bit of texture and color. Here I wanted to kind of replicate what, you know, pottery looks like, and make it look as close to pottery as possible. So this is one. And then on this one, I want to play around with color.
What's the color on? Is it dyes?
That is a combination, yes, combination of dyes. Yeah. This one is strictly, what I did with this is I used milk paint, but I actually sanded each coat so that it looks like it's marble. If you do milk paint and you paint it, you know, it looks beautiful, but it just got a kind of a opaque side. So I wanted to get that sheen that you get in. And this is just you know, carved and burnt. This part now.
Mm-hmm.
I like challenges, and I like cooperation. You know, when you do a co-op with someone, where you want somebody does one thing, somebody the other. So every time I have a chance to work with somebody about something, or if there's a challenge going on the segment, I belong to the segmented as well, and they have a monthly challenge. And this past month, the challenge was do a bird cage, a birdhouse. No specs. Normally, with a segment, we get a drawing, the measurements, and the wood, and this one said, just build it. I don't care what it looks like, build it. So I want to show you what I did. The name is Home Sweet Home. Donuts, one stacked on top of the other. I have some Oreos here, that the little awning. I have a little kiss to end the thing on it. See, when you get a challenge, I mean, you're forced to. You got to produce something, but you're forced to. But as long as you don't have the restriction, then your imagination can come, so you can really work with that imagination. Now, doing those hope things on it, this is my worksheet. This is the actual worksheet for number 8, you know, that piece of it, and that's exactly the size. I draw that to size, and I have everything worked out in there. And after you do, you know, a few, then you come up with solutions. Like for instance, I do 2 at a time now, because I do a complete circle first, because that's simpler, I mean, it's all the way around. And then I cut it off here, and I have the base for the other one, and then I make the other piece on it, so that you're more efficient. But that comes by, and this one is the work for this one right here. Talking about challenge again, and I would recommend you guys do a club challenge, because it really is a lot of fun. Once you get people involved in it, this is a challenge that I probably would never have done this way, but working with, Brad Davies, this is what we came up with. We were given a pin, a bowling pin, and we were told, do something with it. Okay. And this is what came up. This piece right here is what I took off the center. I cut the bowling pin, I removed this piece so that I glued it back together again, so I get the shape of the fish more than just like a fat, thing on it. Then we carved the part of it, and Brad added the fins. I probably wouldn't have put the fins like that, but after he had it together, I think this belongs. I mean, this is what it, what it is. I mean, you have to accept somebody else's idea, and it all ties in. Now, in addition to that, what this needed, this is an in-your-face type of thing on it. It needs a big thumb. So that's belongs to. Now, when you have 2 people that are using the left part of the brain, a lot of stuff comes out, and if you're able to put it together, you get some very, very interesting things. This is a project. This is a project that I think has multiple purposes. One of them is to use their imagination. The other one is to use the leftover wood. Because when you do segments, you always have the piece left over that you can't cut. So you have a box full of those things. What are you going to do with these things? So here's one of the solutions.
I know, that's for you.
These are all pieces of wood, and I left the wood itself color, just polished it. But you can play with this and do every shape you want. And if you want to ship it, it's nice because you can put it in a nice flat box almost. So these are the things that I'm talking about in regards to just getting an idea and taking what you have to do and then taking what you want to do and marry them, and just come up with a solution on that. This is one of my last segment of pieces. The reason why I'm showing you that is, and I would like you to make a comment on it, is I had everything figured out on that. The handles, the size, the vessel itself. I never worked on the foot. My drawing didn't have a foot on it. Now, look at that piece and tell me if you can't tell that something is wrong with that foot. Isn't there too much there?
Yeah, I think so.
And
Should be
this is
simpler, yeah.
and this is where I could tell. You didn't think about it, you dummy. I mean, you didn't have it drawn out. To me, that is what happens when you don't have a plan.
Should be a flat bottom.
Flat would have been fine, or just without this.
Without the ring?
without this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would have been twice as good, I think. But again, I mean, I'm just telling you what I find by working with the plan. You would not get in a situation where you would have that. Now, I know what's going to happen to this vase. In about 2 or 3 weeks, I'll cut the thing off, and I'll work something else in there. But because I really can't stand that. I mean, to me, that's it's a little bit out of line.
I'll leave it flat.
A flat would be fine.
You should cut it off, reverse it as a stopper on the top.
I see.
There you go.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Cooperation. When you have a bunch of people, creative people around, all these things just come out because you're forced to it. You're looking at it. You're forced to it. But really, what I wanted to show you that for was because as soon as I finished it, I said, what did you do that for?
There's another way of saying it. There's the flower, the stem should never be more than the flower. Like the picture frame should never be more than the picture.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense. And I think there is the golden ratio and there is all that. And I don't want to get into that, but you still see it. There's something that tells you, you know what you like, and you can still see it. You may not be able to put your finger on it and say, but if you start playing around with it, and if you start saying, okay, well, let's see now, if we were to
There you go.
do that,
There you go.
you see it. So design has to have the discipline, but it also has to have the freedom. Otherwise, you never get any place.
Cut the middle out.
Yeah. One of the things.
The middle of it.
One of the things that most of us are very impressed by real good turners, real good guys that can put together some of those beautiful things on it. And we want to go out and just copy that. One thing that I would recommend is that you just take that temptation and just go away from it. I mean, just don't even go there. Because I think that satisfaction really comes into developing your own style. If you come up with something that you like, if you come up with something that it becomes something that people know you for, it'd be great. And that only comes if you're daring. If you want to go out there on the limb and fall several times, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to just reach out there because. Simply because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean that it can't be done. And you can talk yourself out of not doing something just as easy. Simply because, maybe the lake doesn't have the capacity or something, or there's different ways to do that. I mean, you can do it half of the time and then glue it together, or something like that. There's so many different solutions to it. Now, I would again go back and tell you that. This is my favorite, most important tool for turning, right there. And that's the way I operate. Now, whether it works for everybody, I don't know. But it works for me because it saves me hours sometimes, because I can actually, after a while, after you've been doing this for a while, and I'm talking about, I've been working with drawings and things like that with my business before, so I have some experience that way. But you wouldn't start on a project, especially if you had a budget, and if you had a limited amount of supplies, without having a plan. Now, we don't have a budget. If we take 200 hours to do something, nobody is going to be on our case, but we still have a responsibility to just use our talent and just come up with the best package, out of it. And if you are successful in putting something together, and you move on, you can do the next project better. This flower right here. To do this flower, it took me about a year to arrive to the solution. I mean, just to find, see, this feels like a flower. It's not solid, because when I started out like everybody else does. I used my shaving for my planer, you know, and I cut it nicely, and it looked beautiful. I mean, you know, and then the thing fell, and it just was 1,700 pieces, you know, because it just dries up. So you know that's not the way you want to go. And then you're still limited. I mean, you know, that curl is good in one direction, but it just, you can't push it in the other. You can't do this. You can't change the shape on it. So you search, you look for it, you try some other materials. And finally I found this material is called solar wood. And what it is actually they take the trunk of the papaya tree and they cut a piece off, and it comes out like a gauze. You know, it just unwinds. And it's basically about this thickness, a little bit, you know, thinner sometimes, and a little bit thicker. And what it does, you don't have to dye it, but you work wet. You use water, and as long as you keep it wet, you can. It's pliable. You can turn it, and then when it dries, it pretty much stays up, but it still stays fairly pliable. So it took a while to get to that solution, and then the problem is the dye. If you use alcohol dye, it doesn't work because it dries too hard, too much. You have to use water-soluble dyes. So another few months to fill, but you stay on it because you want to get that flower concept taken care of, and that's how this came about. Now, I was going to give you this. The problem is I'm not going to, because this is one of my models, and it's all broken up. But I'll send you one for your auction. Okay, send you a flower.
Thank you.
I realized that's the only one that I put in there. That I don't have any other ones.
Frank did that demo here some time ago. It's on Windy City Woodturners, if you want to follow that.
Yeah.
Where do you find the papyrus?
Oh, the three.
The source, I'm sure.
I think I finally got to the point that I bought a big box of it, someplace in Philippines or something, you know, on the thing. If you look on the solar wood, you'll see different sources. Now, you can probably get a smaller quantity, you know, and to test that out. And if you want to try something, I'll give you some, you know, because you don't want to go out there and buy, you know, a bunch of it if you're not going to stay with it, you know. So just let me know. Just give me a call and I'll send you a roll of it, and you can play around. But talking about concepts and ideas, one of my favorite things to do is the sea. I mean, I sail and I love anything. I love diving. I was born right on the Mediterranean, and I think I was snorkeling when I was 3 years old. You know,
Wow.
But so everything that has to do with shells and things like that. So this is a wood. I made this, and this is the duplication of a piece of pearl. And there's nothing better than nature, really, to look at colors, to look at shape and forms. You know, I made a conch shell, and I made a starfish, and of course fish. I have several, but you know that I have one crazy one here. This is turned. This is pretty much turned. That one has a lot of fabrication. Of course, you know, you have to cut it and, you know, make half of it, and, you know, all kinds of crazy things. But most of it is turned. So this one is pretty much all of it turned. Now this right here is a turned piece as well. Now, this one, it requires a little bit more finesse and a little bit more thinking, a little bit more work. But it is.
So how did you make that?
There's two vessels there. this,
Turn one and then
this is,
cut it?
this is one,
Yeah.
and this is the other.
Yeah, good.
And then I had it mounted on a plate, which was squared off, and I sawed a piece out of it, the big one, put it back together again because
Right.
you gotta get that oval, you know. And then I cut this in half and I matched it. Now, that's not as simple as that.
No, it's not.
Because now what happened is the count, this vessel here has got 16 segments per ring. Now this right here, if I did 16, it wouldn't have matched. So I had to come up with a less segment so that the segment would be the same size as that. So what I'm talking about now the idea is here now. The idea is simple. Now you're starting to let your right mind now, your left mind now starting to work solutions out. But you got to come up with a concept first. You know, they say that if an engineer were to build a building, it would be safe and it would stay on forever, but nobody would live in it. If an architect builds a building, everybody will love it, but no, it's going to leak in no time at all. You know, so you gotta take you know, all this, you know, aspects of it. And now this is not brain science. I mean, you take some of these classes, and that's what you take classes for. That's where you get exposed to some of somebody doing some of all this special stuff, and you say, now I can do that as well. And this was a challenge again. It was a club challenge. It said construct and deconstruct. You know, so you gotta, you know. So just to give you an idea, the top, it's got to be, you know, the top has got to be made also to match on it. So you look at the complication that you can put into a piece, and you can go on forever. I mean, you can. I'm working on one now that probably will take me the next 6 months to finish. I'll work on it a little bit at a time because the one thing about segmenting is that you have to let the glue dry. I mean, you can't push it. So you do several rings on it, and you move on, and you do something else. You know, so you have the project sitting in there. But I don't think I have a sketch. Let me see if I have something that I can show you on that one. That one is. Now,
Frank, just hold it up, and I'll just zoom in, and he's gonna turn the lights out, and they can see the whole thing. Now you can talk all you want about that. Modern technology.
Well, here are the rings. You know, basically you do rings like that. You know, first, and you stack them one on top of the other. And then what I've done in order to cut down the amount of, you know, sanding or something that I have to do, I used a pen mandrel. I adapted it to a pen mandrel, so I filled these rings into a pen mandrel. Then I cut them down to about the approximate size. Then all I have to do is change the angles as it moves up the armature. And it has an armature holding the body of the snake.
What are you using for the armature?
A copper wire.
Oh, okay.
Here shows it.
There you go.
It probably shows the copper wire there. Yeah. So, you know, you can get as complicated as you really want to on a project, but it has to start out. It has to start out with that imagination. It has to start out with that, you know, with the concept. And this is where I think many of us would just kind of, you know, happy with doing one thing and it comes out good and give it to somebody, that's great. But I think it's fun to be able to be challenged and to move on and to do something, you know, that makes you get out of your box. You know, I mean, just push yourself a little bit, and I think it really gives you a lot of satisfaction. I don't know of any here is, just to give you an idea, this is one of, I always, when somebody said, what's your favorite tool? And I say, this is my favorite tool right here. It's a number 2 pencil. And I really do believe that working in scale, actual size, is the way to go. Because if you're doing a vessel on it and you have it the right size, first of all, you can see everything, and then your proportions become when you put something together, then you have it in proportion. And if you have it ahead of time, then it's half the battle, because I think once you get here, it's fine. I mean, once you get here, then you're cruising, because you got a roadmap. You're going. You're producing the piece. And the solutions that you need for here are different. Those are just math and tool control and things. But before you get there, I think is the hard part to do. And the hard part, gives you the satisfaction and it gives you the difference. I mean, it gives you the chance to do something that is yours. It's unique. I think that's about it.
Frank, do me a favor.
Yes.
Turn your segmented vessel or the one in the front here.
This one?
Turn it upside down and set it down. Does that change it for anybody? What do you see now?
You gotta cut the bottom off.
Yeah.
This is a very easy thing to do. Is if you have something,
Yeah.
look at it in different directions or different
Another thing too is when you
ways
have
of
it on
doing
the
it.
chart,
Turn it upside
I don't
down.
know about you guys.
Even a
I have
simple
a hard
bowl.
time seeing horizontal.
You're looking at the form there. You turn it upside down like a lampshade, and if it works both ways, then you got a pretty good form.
Well, I
So if there's something wrong with it, one or the other is going to show up on
Leave
you.
it on the chart, but
Things
leave it
like that.
It just throws you off of something.
Well, understood.
You can't see it.
Yeah, can't see it as well. Well, I still think that this probably
Yeah, it's got a
Probably. Well, normally
Try
what
to
I,
get your solids to hang out.
normally what I would do is I would draw it now, it's, but I think if you take a piece and you hide it,
It's not big enough.
yeah, it's gotta go.
There you go.
There you go.
Better, that's better.
Yeah, obviously, there's too much there. I even think that if this were not there, and probably even that not there, and this up to it,
That would work, yeah.
that probably would
Yeah,
work.
you gotta get that bottom.
Now, we're not talking about from bad to good. We're talking about from good to better. See, that's where it's hard to do it. If you're talking about a real stinky thing on it, that's obvious. Cut it off, it's no good. But when you're talking about making it better from good, it's a little harder. But it does. There is a difference. There is a difference. Yeah.
Do you ever cut up the pieces and put them together in full scale?
What you
Where
mean?
you have different bases on that same vessel, or different top on it, where you could interchange them and see what one might.
I
come up.
usually do that on paper,
Yeah,
but
just
I
using-
have made
or cardboard
pieces.
or poster
Yeah,
board.
I have made pieces where I have just changed the bottom, changed the top,
Yeah.
changed the finial, and I did a sphere, a large sphere, 12-inch sphere, with a nice base on it, and it had beautiful finial on it. Everything was good, but independent, not together. I just couldn't make that thing work. So I put it aside, and I went to bed, woke up in the middle of the night, and said, I know what I'm gonna do. I went down, and I designed a set of dragons, 3 dragons holding on the base, the ball. and on top I put a Chinese kind of letter on it. Perfect. And I sold the finial at the show. Just the finial was sitting in there. Somebody came over and said, "Love that finial." You know, and he bought the finial without, you know, and I still had it sitting in there. But you know, it was a nice, beautiful finial. I mean, beautiful wood and everything. But it just didn't fit. So I think if it was that easy, I mean, you know, everybody would be doing it. Yeah. But I think it can be worked. I mean, that's what I'm saying is that you can look at it and you can play with it. The thing about it is, if I can talk you into doing a little paperwork on it, I think it'll save you a lot of work, final work on it.
If I drew it, I'd have to have very big erasers.
Oh, well, you know, when people tell me, so, I can't draw, and it's just, that's not such a thing.
I find that scissors and paper, I get a
You
better.
know, I always tell people,
Better
you just take a piece of paper and you put lines on it. Somebody took my number 2 pencil.
I know where there's one here.
He lost his favorite tool.
I know whether there's one here. There you go. But anyway, you put a line. You put a line in there. Okay, so say you want an oval. Okay. One of those lines is going to be just about right. So now your job is to remove the ones that are not good and go to the one that is good. Where's that piece here is a piece of tracing paper. You get right on top of it. Okay? And pick the best line that you see. Out of all those, one of the lines is just about right. Pick the best line and you're almost there. Now you want to refine that one more time, put another piece on top of it and work on that. Or start blackening down the line that is the right one. You'll see it. It's there, it's right there, you know, because you know what the thing should be. So as long as you can see it, you can draw it. And now, if you're talking about things that are, you know, pretty much a rule or something like that, then it's simple. I mean, a drafting board can do that. You know, the same way if you want to create, you know, if you're doing a piece that now has to have something on it, okay. Start connecting it, and then if you don't quite see what you're going to do, just step back on it and look. One of those lines is someplace where it should be, so just pick the line and follow it, and refine it, make it a little bit harder, look darker, and you'll get to the point that you get the shape that you want. And it doesn't have to be that perfect anyway. So visually it doesn't take, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. As long as you bring
There's
it
a certain
in.
doing things over and over again where you start to learn forms
Exactly.
and shapes.
Exactly. And practice. You
I'm
know,
not
practice.
against folding it in half and then just cutting the
Cut it
curves
up. Exactly. You know.
as a starter.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about, of that idea of taking a piece of,
Right.
you know, a regular standard sheet of paper and doing it on a standard sheet of paper. Make it vertical, so you're definitely vertical, and you square off, and then within that get your shape on, and then if you do both sides of it, then you know that you have it just about right. And more of that you can do, and the better it'll be, you know, save you a lot of work on it. And then the rest of it is, do you measure things, and, you know, are you particular about the thickness, and those are all things that are individual things. Now, should this vessel be 1/4 of an inch thick? Should this be an 8 or 16? I mean, you know, those are all individual likings. But the concept, the idea is what I think is the key. You know, you got to get excited about it. You got to come up with something that you have in your mind, and you're going to be able to move it over into some kind of a workable project. I don't know if I can add any more to this. You guys have any questions, any ideas?